Now we get to talk about what made the whole show worthwhile. And there were good things, other things that we'll talk about, but this was worth the price of admission alone, as they used to say. FTR and Gin and Juice. And now we know the Eliminator match. Thank God there are actual announcers on this program that kind of explained it better than we have heard so far.
It's an eliminator match. They get eliminated, and if they don't get eliminated, they get another match, and if that match wins, they don't get eliminated, they get eliminated. Something like that?
Yeah, no, fortunately, instead of a fucking idiot fake person with a sock on his face, we have actual human beings with real faces doing the announcing. So the Eliminator match, if they win the challengers here, then they get a title match. But if they don't win, if they get beat, then they can never have a title match against these champions. That's what it is. So that makes a little more sense. Okay. A tag team match with talent. And I mean, from the start of this thing, the lockup and the struggle in the corner, you can see that it's a level above most of the other people in the company. And finally, we see now that Jay White and Juice Robinson, they can work. They've just, we remember I said, I'd like to see this guy impress me. Well, now he has, because he finally had a fucking opponent. Juice, we've been impressed with. But they also, I'm not going to go blow by blow on this tag team match, because especially as it headed down the stretch, you couldn't keep up with it or describe it. But the flavor of it was they had a modern style tag match in terms of the pace and the action, but no furniture, no dives. They actually tagged most of the time. They didn't bury the referee unnecessarily. They not only did wrestling spots, but they worked in between the spots with the heels backing off and begging off, or the baby faces being aggressive or working the people. And they paced this thing so that they had momentum-changing moments at the break spots, but not just the requisite, somebody's going to do a dive out of the ring and the announcer is going to say, "What will happen?" Bleh. They actually pitch to the breaks. They acknowledge that things are going on. And so after the first segment of this, they allowed them to go 5 minutes to get you set into it. They set the hook. You're a little bit involved in it now. And then FTR do the classic tag team do-si-do and hit double Germans. Instead of a do-si-do and then punches or ass bumps, they modified it, modernized it to Germans. The place blew. They loved that. And they went to a break. And when they come back, they're getting heat on Dax, and Dax is taking the Bret Hart buckles. But he's firing back, and then he tags Cash. And again, Gin and Juice were working like heels. And Juice hit Cash with a hot shot that he went straight over the top rope, which looked fucking excellent. And then they got some heat on Cash. And it was a long, good, old school, regular set of heat on Cash, where the heels did quick tags in and out, and the babyface tried to fight to the corner. And finally, he got to the corner, but Dax was busy with Juice. And Dax got nailed off the apron, and then Cash fought both heels, but got backdropped over the top rope, and they went to the break again, but after 9 more minutes of action. So once again, we're fucking reasonably hooked, and this thing is cooking. And then they come back, and now Cash and Juice are both down, and Juice tags fucking Jay, and Jay charges, and Cash moves and dives for a hot tag. We actually saw one. And Dax makes a big comeback, and they start with their false finishes and 2 counts. And the people are holy shit chanting. And then they went through an incredible sequence of events that I can't, again, begin to detail at 100 miles an hour, nailing everything. The crowd was going batshit because they were going back and forth. They were taking them on a roller coaster ride. They got a "This is awesome" chant. Nigel and Kevin Kelly were tremendous on the call. They did some incredible false finishes that you could buy every time. And did you see Dax knock the slobber out of Jay White with a powerbomb, and then hit him with that uppercut forearm and knocked the glob of slobber into his hair. And I was like, what the? This was a slobber knocker. And then Dax and Jay White went through the yay boo forearm and chop exchange back and forth, not standing there like strong style.
That to me was the biggest mistake in the match. That had no place in my eyes being there. And that that was a ridiculous place to put that spot.
They were trying to fight, though. They weren't standing there and pointing to their chest and going, go on, hit me. They were swinging back and forth. Still, I know it's overdone, but
it's ubiquitous now. Yeah, no,
it's ubiquitous. That is a good word. It's also prevalent.
Too prevalent.
Over prevalent.
And ubiquitous.
Hyper prevalent.
That's right.
But nevertheless.
That's the next NXT star. Hyper prevalent.
Hyper prevalent. So Dax then rolls Jay up, but Juice pulls him off and hits his inverted DDT finish 1, 2, 3. And there was another 9-minute segment. 23 minutes of the match were on the air, and it was 29 minutes bell to bell. Not one dive, not one piece of furniture. I don't remember them ever fighting on the floor. They took bumps to the floor, but I don't remember fights out there. So what I want to know is with all those, again, if Uncle Dave is given 5 stars to the plumber for these multiple man bullshit matches where he's unprofessional, looks like shit, his work is see-through and phony, he cuts himself on camera, and they use every fucking piece of furniture in the building, bury the referee countless times, and can't use the ring because they're in the floor or the bleachers. If that gets 5 stars, then what? When you have 4 athletes that look like wrestlers, that know what they're doing, that have talent, that scorch the fucking ring with an incredible display of tag team wrestling involving no furniture, no dives, no gymnastics, no burying the referee, no fighting in the crowd, and no on-camera blade jobs. How does that not get 5 stars? What do you think it'll get, Brian?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, we'll talk about Dave's rating system on the Drive-Thru this week, but he says that people should be happy with just 4 3/4 stars. It's the same thing as 5 stars, except it's not. But we'll talk more about that in the future. This was an excellent match.
But in all seriousness, you know, when people see something like this with people who are good at what they do showing it, how can you compare that to this amateur class bullshit that we are fed by the other fucking side of this thing?
There are people who like the gymnastics aspect of wrestling more than they like the physical wrestling part of wrestling. They just may not
well, I don't
it.
see the plumber doing any gymnastics either, but he does everything else.
But this was an excellent match. And the other thing is it went long and it didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
You were caught up in it. And part of the reason is the commentary. And that's a big thing. You want to talk about a match, something that elevates a match from being 4.5 stars to 5 stars. Let's talk about the commentary here. Nigel is really good, although to me, sometimes he feels like he's unnaturally being a heel. He's better just being a heelish color guy.
Yeah.
Kevin Kelly, I said it before, I'll say it again. He's doing the best work of his career. And when you look at the landscape and every other commentator out there today, not to take anything away from Ian Riccaboni and Caprice Coleman, but Kevin Kelly calling this match and these guys working this kind of match made it feel like you were watching sports-based wrestling. And it, to me, and this rarely happens, it held me better through the commercial breaks. I guess knowing that the voice coming back was going to just be explaining things, this kind of match, this kind of action, I don't know when it's going to end, how it's going to end, what's going to happen. I don't want to miss anything. I thought it was great. Went a long time. The fans were into it. Again, the only thing to me that brought the fans down was the yay, boo, whatever you want to call it, the spot at the end of the match where Dax and Jay White are just standing there and they slowed it down. And to me, it didn't look right. It didn't feel right. And it also brought the fans down a little bit. Other than that, excellent match, even with a little sloppiness at the beginning. It felt like these guys are all just learning to work with each other, I guess. Excellent match. And between the match, the action, the commentary, this is the tone a lot of us want from this Saturday night show. And I had a really good night because I had this show and then the last Mets late night game because they were in San Diego at 10:10. But it felt like a good transition. It felt like I was watching a sports show and then I'm going to go watch baseball. And not every time I watch wrestling can I just, it doesn't feel like a good fit right into the next thing.
We are able to actually start looking forward to rather than dreading like I do every Thursday morning when I say, okay, I'll get this out of the way. I'll watch Dynamite from last night and I'll fast forward through all the bullshit. This is not a chore. I still can't stay up till 10 o'clock on Saturday night most of the time, but it's not something I look unforward to, that I look to with displeasure on Sunday morning watching Collision. Because I know every show has had a good, the first show had the great match. Second week had a really good match. Last week was a little odd, but still had a good match. And then this was incredible. And it's always usually involving FTR, Punk, or both. But again, FTR, let's just call a spade a spade. They've had the best six-man tag match ever on AEW television. They've had the best tag team matches ever on AEW television. And they're the AEW talent that's had the best tag matches of all time in other companies with the Briscoes last year. So just put them on every week and we'll see what happens.
But here's the problem. And someone actually put this in the Cult of Cornette Facebook group, and it follows up on something I said when we recorded yesterday, the other part of the show. Chris Waite in the Cult of Cornette Facebook group, since winning the AEW tag belts on April 5th, FTR have had 2 tag matches and they lost 1. That's the problem. Why aren't these guys, instead of a blind eliminator tournament, I just want tag title matches. That's it.
Well, that's what we're going to get next week because they challenged, Jay and Juice challenged FTR to 2 out of 3 falls next week. And I can't wait to see that and hope it goes longer than this one did.
What do you do with that? Do you start the show with it?
Well, I don't know what else they've got or what else they're planning, etc. So if, but after this week, it's a great match.
If this went a half hour, I mean, you got to think there's no way 2 out of 3 falls is going to go less than that.
No, that's why I'm saying I hope it goes longer. But I don't know whether you start with that or do you start with, because again, there's going to be the finals are next week of the tournament. Well, we're going to get to the finals of the Owen tournament in a second of what I think that may be done or possible things that could be done.